Hi guys, James of Goddard Radio Moscow Beer and Metal reviews again for you today. For this one we are going to go and do my first exclusively Italian craft beer. The only other Italian beers I've done for you on this one so far have been Peroni Nastro Azzurro, I think it was, and I also did one that was a Total Brewfest collaboration, so this is my first exclusively Italian beer. So for this one we're going to go to Birra del Borgo and have a taste of their Etrusca Archeobirra beer, which is apparently fermented in a terracotta pot, and it's got some really interesting traditional style to it, so it should be a very interesting one. And it's from the Bizzare range of these guys, and apparently they do a different one of these each month, and this is apparently a very rare beer to find, so it's quite unusual that I've come across this one down in Australia. It's quite hard to get a hold of Italian craft beer back home in Scotland, but somehow I can pick it up fairly easily here in Australia, so not quite sure why that is. But as is usual with my reviews then, I'll take you through a very short bit about the brewery. Quite an interesting one this if you want to stick with me for it, but just fast forward onto the tasting if you do want to get right there. The brewery website is in the video description below, along with a link to my other reviews that I will do in the future from Birra del Borgo. So anyway, this brewery was established by Leonardo Di Vincenzo, and prior to establishing Birra del Borgo he was an academic researcher in biochemistry, and he actually developed an interest in home brewing, and he travelled around Belgium and Germany and England to get a feel for all the different beer styles that you could get around the world. And upon his return to Italy, his interest in home brewing evolved into actually wanting to do it commercially. So in 2005 Leonardo officially launched Birra del Borgo in Borgorose, which is a small village in Rieti province at the border between Lazio and Abruzzo, just near Rome. But their first production site is the old brewery, which is Il Vecchio Birrificio in Colle Rosso, which is where they created some of their most famous recipes. This includes the Reale, the Duchessa and the Ducale, which apparently are very, very nice beers. I need to check them out. There is an extensive range of beers available from these guys, so check out the brewery website if you want to see all of those. But in 2007 they launched their pizzeria, which is called Beer e Food in Travestare in Rome, and this was the idea behind this was that they wanted to really launch the idea of pairing beer and pizza with all the different toppings and stuff like that. So apparently it's a good destination if you're a bit of a beer geek and find yourself in Roma. But 2 years later in 2009 they inaugurated their new brewery with a larger production line, and they converted the old brewery into a beer lab for experimentations, and there's a lot of interesting stuff goes on there, and I think this is where this guy was produced, where they produced their Bizzare range if you like. But they also launched their open Baladin beer house in Rome as well, with Teo Musa of Baladin Brewery, and this is apparently a bit of a beer hub in the city, so go and check that out as well if you do find yourself in Rome. And later in 2011 they also partnered up with Sam Calagione of Dogfish Head from, I think they're from Delaware over in America, and they opened up the Birreria in Manhattan, so apparently that's a very good destination, and my friend Dave in America has been there and says it's very, very good. So just to list a few of the other beers you can get from these guys, that's a short kind of history of Birra del Borgo, just to list the other beers you can get from these guys. In the classic range you have the Reale, which is an APA, American Pale Ale, Reale Extra, which is an IPA, Duchessa, which is a Saison, My Antonia, which is an Imperial Pils, Ducale, which is a Belgium medium strong, Cato Reporter, which is a black beer, Enkir, which is a special grain Saison, and Cortigiana, and that is their classic range. They've got a few seasonals as well, which are called Stagionale, and they also have their La Bizzara, which is the experimental ones as I explained to you a little while ago, and this is where you'll find this guy. So anyway, let's get on to the tasting of this guy finally. So this one is a 9.3% traditional ale. It was brewed in collaboration with Sam Calagione from Dogfish Head, Dr. Patrick McGovern from Pennsylvania University, who is apparently a little bit of a specialist in kind of modernising like ancient recipes and things like that, and he was involved in the brewing of this beer. He's an expert in, I think they call it archaeological gastronomy or something like that, but he's quite into that, and he was also involved in the brewing of this one. And there was also Teo Musa, who was from Baladin Brewery as well, and as I mentioned to you at the start of the video, this one was fermented in a terracotta clay vessel, which apparently gives it quite an interesting taste. So we'll soon see what it's like, but I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. As you can see, it's got that nice kind of terracotta colour on it here, and it has the old kind of sort of Roman, or it almost looks a bit Greeky to me actually, but it's got that old kind of ancient terracotta artwork to it. It doesn't say very much on the back. It has a little, it just says about the ingredients. It has a best before date, which is March 2016, but it's quite nicely presented actually. It doesn't It doesn't actually say Birra del Borgo on the label, but it's quite an interesting one. It just says Archeobirra fermenta in a forte de terracotta, which I think is just fermented in a terracotta vessel basically. So there you are, nicely presented, plain bottle cap on this one. So let's get it out and get on with the tasting, and as I mentioned to you, it is 9.3%, so here we go. As you can see, a nice kind of smoky opening on it, and I do have to admit I do like this kind of unusual vessel that this guy's come in. Seems to be quite a common theme with Italian craft beer, that they like to put them in these little kind of I don't know how you would call these type of bottles, but they like to put them in these ones with the kind of fat bottom and the long neck. So let's just set this guy down and we'll have a look at the beer itself. So as you can see, very, very small head that's just going to fade away. You can see it's pretty much a white bubbly head, not very foamy at all, but that's just faded away to a very thin layer. If I put my fingers behind that, you can see it's a nice kind of hazy golden amberish colour. Looks really attractive actually. It looks like a nice German Helles, to be honest with you. Put my fingers behind it, it is hazy, you can't see right through it, but there's a lot of carbonation, some kind of big and medium sized bubbles just sticking towards the edge of the glass, and a lot of them kind of travelling up there towards the bottom of the head. But let's just give it a wee smell and see how we get on with this guy. It smells very, very sweet. It actually smells quite vinous, if that makes sense. It smells a lot like wine, but it's got a big malty edge to it as well. Definitely a lot of kind of honey and caramel in there. It could almost be at the same time as being a little bit vinous with the kind of acidic fruits and stuff coming out. It could almost smell a little bit like mead at the same time. It's almost a kind of middle ground of the aroma there, I would say. But yeah, you've got a big malty aroma in there, a lot of nice kind of honey elements coming out, and some nice, there's definitely a nice honey caramel element to it, but some bready and yeasty notes coming out in the background. But there's a nice element of kind of almost apple-y fruit coming out on this one. It does have a little bit of a cidery aroma actually, which is quite interesting. But there's a bit of kind of dark fruit in there too. You can smell that just as you take it in. There's definitely a dark fruit just coming in at the back of the nose. But it definitely has a cidery and almost acidic vinous aroma to it actually. So it's a very interesting smell on this one. So if you do find this beer, just take a little bit of time and take in the aroma, as I always say. But let's get on with this guy. So this is the Archeobirra Etrusca from Birra del Borgo in Borgorose, just outside of Rome. So cheers, my first Italian craft beer review. It's very, very, what's the word? It's very tart actually. It does have a very vinous feel to it, this one. Yeah, it is. It does have a lot of white wine. It does have a little bit of a kind of white winey feel to it, if you like. Not so much in terms of the flavour, but just a little bit of a kind of feel in the mouth. It's quite a dry one, this one, but at the same time, it's very sharp and very tart. There's a lot of citrusy flavour in it as well. There's this really kind of sharp citrusy flavour that kind of goes right around the edge of the tongue there. Very sharp, very acidic, very tart flavour, and that just sits around the edge of the tongue. Towards the back you're getting just a little bit of the kind of bready and yeasty character coming out. There's a little bit of a kind of spiciness to it, but it's very, very faint. The overwhelming component of the flavour in this one is definitely the kind of sharp, tart fruit flavour. It's definitely the biggest point in this beer, the most noteworthy thing. But a lot of yeastiness, very, very sharp flavours. If you're into your kind of white wine, this is definitely one you want to check out. But if you're more into your sort of ales and things, this is maybe one that you would want to kind of ease yourself into, if you like. But yeah, really has this nice, this really kind of interesting, sharp, white winey feel around the edge of the tongue. There's a little bit of a kind of bready and yeasty note just going over the back of the palate, but there's a bit of interesting kind of caramel and honey flavour mixed in with that. There's just a wee teeny hint of spice, but the overwhelming element of the flavour of this guy is definitely around the edges of the tongue. It's that big acidic, very tart flavour. It's very citrusy, but there is a teeny little bit of dark fruit in there that kind of, it just pushes its way in slightly, but it's really kind of overwhelmingly tart and sharp citrus, this one. It's definitely an interesting one. The terracotta flavour, you can pick up just a little bit of that in the malt base, but this is one that you really need to kind of tune your palate to a little bit and get into it a wee bit more, I think. It says that you should serve this one, I think it was between 8 and 12 degrees, and I've let it warm up to just a little bit above that, to a little bit below that, sorry. So I'm guessing as it gets a little bit warmer, the malt base starts to come out a little bit more, and you get just a little bit of that kind of interesting spice coming into the yeasty flavours just from the terracotta. It's quite an interesting way to ferment it, actually. But yeah, you can feel just a little bit of the spice just in the middle of the tongue, right at the front. Quite an interesting element. Never tasted one quite like this, so if you do happen to come across it, definitely buy it up and give it a go. I'd really be interested to hear what you guys actually think of this one if you've tried it. It's like nothing I've ever tried before. I did try the disco beer, which was from Evil Twin a little while ago, which had a similar feel to this one, but this is a really different flavour from that. It has that, but at the same time it does have that big kind of acidic tart flavour to it from the kind of vinous taste, if you like, almost white winey taste. But in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, it's very light bodied. The carbonation is quite soft, but at the same time it does help bring out a little bit more of that acidic character to it. It's slightly oily in the mouthfeel as well, but it's quite wet at the same time. It really does have a very kind of spritzy, kind of white wine mouthfeel to it, this one, but it's like nothing else you'll ever taste. If anything, that's a reason to buy it up, and I think I got this for about $7 or $8, which is about £4 or €5, however you want to translate it. But a little bit more than that, and a little bit less than that in American dollars as well, I guess. But it's a very, very interesting beer. If you do happen to find it, it's a very rare example as well, so you know, definitely give it a go and see what you think of it yourself. But as always, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. Please let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this one below, and as I always ask, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I ask my Italian viewers as well to recommend me some more Italian craft beer to look at, but I do have another one to review for you in the next few videos as well. So I'll catch you soon with that one, and I hope you're enjoying the series of beer reviews. Cheers.